even a mindlessly and hopelessly indoctrinated Keynesian like the morons that run the Federal Reserve currently and have for quite some time, even those guys can't be so dumb and economically illiterate to not know that that's exactly what was going to happen when they printed off that much money in that short of amount of time. Of course they knew. For the main part of the episode today, we're talking about victim blaming. Victim blaming of all of us, the victims of terrible monetary policy by the Fed and the federal government. You used to think it was just within a relationship. Nevermore. Because the bankers and the politicians that they've captured that actually run the world, don't you know, they never make it. Who runs the world? They never make it. Girls. Who runs the world? Girls. Who runs the... Anywho, the victim blaming we're talking about here is, it's your fault, citizen. It's your fault that inflation has been as high and as long-lasting as it has been. Yeah, you fucking greedy assholes. Look at you. You agreed that you want to feed your family. You want to enjoy your time on this planet. How dare you? Because... How dare you? You scumbag. What you've been doing is letting the corporate greedy fat cats... Let them know, Dane. ...get away scot-free and just jacking up prices, and you just keep buying. Smackdown. It's terrible. Look at you. How dare you assume that you can have omelets in this economy? You know, you think you can afford McDonald's? Eat some steel-cut oats. You want a steak? Maybe chew on some water the next time you get hungry. Eat grasshoppers, motherfucker. Okay? You think you want to fly on a private jet? Economy class, all the way in the back, middle seat. Suck it. And you should be happy to be there. So in this article, originally published on Bloomberg, but in the link below, you'll see it's by a publication called The Business Standard. We have the title of the article, "We've all been way too accepting of inflation." Subtitle, "It's time customers push back against price increases. Corporate profits shouldn't grow at the expense of the economy." Now, we're not going to go into this whole corporate profits or the driver of inflation because we've done that before. But what we are going to talk about is this persistent, and again, this is a meme that must be destroyed. And in keeping with the theme of not allowing the evil bastards that have put us in this situation to rewrite history and make it seem like it's anybody's fault other than their beloved central bankers that set the monetary policy that create these situations, is we're not going to let them rewrite history and claim that it's just corporate greed is the reason why inflation has been so large and long lasting. We all remember that's not the case. You choosing to buy food, clothing, and shelter that you need to survive and maintain some semblance of the standard of living you had before is not what's contributing to this. We all remember. It's the Federal Reserve. That's where it begins and ends, and fuck those bastards. We had nothing to do with any of this. We had every objection to it, and they went ahead and did it anyway, and now they're holding us responsible for what they did. Don't forget that. I hand my time back over to Dane. I just did a word search in this article for the phrase or the term Federal Reserve, because again, to anybody with an IQ above whatever the core inflation rate is right now, which is about 5%, you know that inflation begins and ends as a cause with pumping fake, useless dollars into an economy for no other reason other than, as the Fed would call it, quantitative easing. That's what causes inflation. It's not greedy corporations, because I assume that the corporations didn't wait to be greedy right when prices started to rise. I assume they were greedy for the last 10, 20, 30, 40, forever years. As you know, the progressive socialists would tell you, the corporations have always been and always will be greedy. So I don't know why that would all of a sudden factor into why inflation has been so high and persistent. It's the Federal Reserve. It's them pumping trillions of dollars into the economy backed by nothing. So the goods and services that you are using your dollars to pay for rise commensurate with the amount of green pieces of paper circulating in the economy to buy them. Because, again, the paper is more and more worthless the more that's pumped into it. So you need more of the paper to buy things. So, as I said, I word searched the phrase Federal Reserve in this article just to see, did it even come up? There were 2 hits in this relatively long article. One is under a picture of people shopping outside of a I Love New York gift store. And it says, quote, increase in core inflation is poised to drive the Federal Reserve to continue its most aggressive series of interest rate hikes in decades. So notice that, to drive the Federal Reserve. The inflation was pre-existing and it's a result of corporate greed, and that's forcing the Federal Reserve to act, as opposed to the Federal Reserve is the cause, and now the Federal Reserve, trying to fix its own fuck up, is now acting. But you see how they twist that? The Federal Reserve is just an innocent actor like you and me. They're trying to fix it, but it wasn't their fault for getting it caused in the first place. And the second phrase, quote, because they refer to the 1960s when there was high inflation. The women-led grocery store boycotts of the 1960s in the U.S. were ultimately unsuccessful in driving down inflation. And inflation was only stamped out years later by the Federal Reserve hiking interest rates to punishing levels. But today's consumers have a far more effective tool than placards, social media. So what the author wants you to do is bitch about it on social media that prices are high and that it's the cause of corporate greed, and don't look behind the curtain and think that it might be the Federal Reserve, because, you know, they'll just come along after the fact and raise rates and that will fix it. Thank God for the Fed.
You mean the best and the brightest minds that we have in this country to date didn't see printing out 40% of the amount of money that's ever been printed by the Fed would have astronomical consequences in inflation. I understood that concept when I was 7.
Which leads you to believe that they probably did.
They're either stupid, as we always say, or they're evil. Neither one are a good option.
Or they have reckless disregard for what they know will be the case, which
would make them evil.
Again, why wouldn't they, if the ultimate goal is, as this podcast and a few others have tried to start blowing the whistle on, is that the end game is central banking digital currencies, CBDCs, where paper money is now gone. The only money that will be exchanged in the economy is a central bank token, which, again, just a simple press of the button, they can just inflate away the value of that as well. Or, you know, if you're too much of a political dissident or whatever, they just turn it off and no more groceries or electricity for you, citizen. That's got to be the end game, because I cannot think even a mindlessly and hopelessly indoctrinated Keynesian like the morons that run the Federal Reserve currently and have for quite some time. Even those guys can't be so dumb and economically illiterate to not know that that's exactly what was going to happen when they printed off that much money in that short of amount of time. Of course they knew. So are they evil bastards trying to force us into a monetary collapse that they're going to come along after the fact and say, listen, guys, we buried ourselves under so much debt, we can't possibly dig ourselves out of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to repudiate the debt. We're going to say the dollar doesn't exist anymore. Now the central banking digital currency does. Everybody's going to get their allotment according to the amount of green pieces of paper they had under the previous regime. And now that's what everybody uses to transact in the economy. Boom. Done. Over. Complete digitization of the money overnight. And that is a dystopian nightmare of your worst possible dreams. Is that the direction they're pushing? Are they really that evil? Or are they really that stupid that they didn't see it coming? I don't know which is the case, but I know that whatever their policy solution is to dig us out of their fuck up is probably going to be worse than whatever they did to get us into it. But if you listen to the people that write articles like this that we're talking about today, that whole group of actors who did that are simply just mere bit part players in this whole thing, and not the driving impetus behind it. So read between the lines when you read articles like that, and come over to Weapons of Meme Destruction to get the real news, because these sons of bitches will lie you right off a cliff and you'll never know what hit you until it's too late.